obviously their role players had big games in Game 5. Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Luke Kennard. I mean, you kind of go down the list, but what is it that you guys need to do, or you think you can do better to kind of limit those guys' success?
Well, I think, those guys are really good players, and they're proven players in the league. I think there's things that you adjust to without Kawhi out there that we'll try to do more of tonight. On the way in that they're going to find production from other places. But I think, some subtle or not so subtle things that we can do to make it harder on them will be important. We'll have some mismatch situations, as we've had, but they're different situations that I think, require a little more focus and urgency for us because they are different. But I think we're ready to go. A lot of times when a player like that's out, as you said, other guys raise their level, and I think that's to be expected. But they're playing a little more free. They know that, the team needs their production, and, give them credit. They did make plays. I thought as much as anything, the way the game changed also with man playing the 5, they've really hurt us in transition. So us being able to really get back and protect the paint and not let those guys, Jackson got to the rim a lot early, and, we have to take those easy ones away as much as anything. Morris hurt us a lot, picking and popping. We hadn't seen that as much in the series because, they're playing through Kawhi and PG more, and now they're playing through him, and that just, again, becomes a little different, and, you adjust for that.
Ben Anderson, KSLSports.com.
Does it feel now going into Game 6, especially because now you've seen them without Kawhi, that you've got maybe the best game plan because you're just so familiar with them? I mean, is this going to be the best one you have all series? Does it work that way?
I think you have a game plan, and sometimes you adjust your game plan during the course of the game. And we've done that. We've done that some. We did that in Game 4. And then obviously with Kawhi out, typically, when a player of that caliber, is playing the whole series, your game plan, probably gets adjusted, but it doesn't change, as dramatically as it would when you lose someone like that. So, I wouldn't evaluate it on that continuum as much as I would say that, I think our execution and our focus on what we're trying to do, and hopefully some of the things that, we can do as a staff to help our guys, put them in positions where we can be even more effective.
Lawrence Murray, The Athletic.
Hey, Quinn, I think you kind of addressed this already as far as like seeing the Clippers team that didn't have their main piece or one of their main pieces for a game, but Paul George is still there. And just from your perspective, like, how do you kind of affect what they're trying to do a little more after seeing what he's capable of doing with Kawhi off the floor?
Yeah. You go back and watch film of games they've had earlier in the year and see some of those tendencies. I think, the ball's in his hands even more. One of the things, because of his height, he's really able to attack our bigs at the rim. And, there are certain lineups that, he can have success doing that. So being mindful of that, guarding his pick and roll. The other thing, because he's 6'8", he's also able to shoot it off the dribble in the pick and roll. So he's gonna attack you in both those situations, and that's something we have to be able to handle or at least impact. And then, also in isolation situations, I think there's just a higher volume of those things where, his ability, he's such a good ball handler, his ability to create space with his dribble and get a step back is something that, that I think, has given teams trouble and becomes a real matchup challenge. So, if we can make it harder for him, and, we need to utilize Rudy at, from a schematic standpoint, most of what we do involves trying to figure out ways to have Rudy be able to impact the game. That's not, a secret to anybody. But again, just us adjusting to personnel situations, closing out on Terrence Mann and having him drive the ball, things like that we've got to be really conscious of. And then I also think with Paul, he'll be even more aggressive in transition before a defense gets set. And that's something that we've seen really from their whole team, but from him in particular. So us getting back, and not just being back, but really closing off driving lines to the rim when we're not in half court, is something that's really important. And then, he's going to get by and he's going to make plays, and we're going to be in rotations at times. That's what a great player does to you. And hopefully we can dictate those rotations more, and get to some of those guys a little sooner, and not give them, as clean of looks.
Cam Buford, LA News Observer.
Good afternoon. Question for you is about the others. And is it incumbent upon you to kind of run plays to get the others involved, or is that do you ask them to kind of get themselves involved and kind of step up and play better basketball?
A little bit of both. I think there's opportunities when we have matchup situations that we can take advantage of, and you try to. When a team is switching, the way that they do, they're really trying to build a perimeter. And the biggest thing for us is the guys that are able to get by and get into the paint at various times. What ends up happening is hopefully we can create closeout situations for those other guys. But our ability to isolate and play matchups, with some of our other guys, as you're mentioning, whether it be, Boyan or George, they when they're switching pick and roll and they're getting under Rudy, and it's a physical game like that, and he can't put pressure on the rim with the roll. We've got to figure out ways to break the paint and then make him effective around the basket, on the boards and with, later looks after he gets to the rim. So I think to involve other guys for us is really more of a collective thing. It's one of the reasons, I think I've mentioned it's so important for us to get out and run, because that really gives guys, some opportunities where they have some space in transition. But in the half court, when they're switching pick and roll and they're switching screening actions when they're small, they're taking some of those things away. And, what we need to do is to break the paint with penetration. And that's when it'll really open things up, for other people.
Rebecca Harlow, TNT.
Hey, Coach, I know we're waiting on an update with Mike and with Donovan based on how they warm up. But if you do have one or more of them available, what goes into your thought process in terms of, how you will handle their minutes? And I guess if you could just describe, even if they're not at 100%, but you're confident that they can be out there without furthering injury. I mean, how effective can those guys be in your mind?
Well, I think, the biggest thing, Rebecca, is, they won't be out there if there's, any risk of something, more substantial occurring when they're playing. Donovan's been playing through pain, from the beginning of the playoffs. Mike's had a situation where he hasn't been able to be out there. So, whether it be minutes restrictions, or, maybe a little less effective from an athletic standpoint, they're both those guys are the two guys that, particularly in this series, allow us, to break the defense down. And it's kind of what I was saying before, that they create offense for other people. So they may not be able to finish as well as they can normally, but just their presence on the court and their ability to handle the ball, really impacts our team. Our team's built that way. So when you remove those guys, it has a big impact on how we play. So I think, the impact that they have, even if they're not, at their best, is still substantial, particularly, in this series, the way that the Clippers guard us and the fact that they're playing small and switching so much.
Last question, Heather Yako, All Arabia Network.
Hi, Coach. You all started this series off strong, up 2-0, and then we've seen a turnaround here midway into the series. What's the feel like in the locker room, and what lasting words did you leave with the players going into a game that could potentially close out the series?
Well, I think, our guys know what's at stake, and, to the extent you continue to focus on the things that, you think you can do or need to be successful. And then also, whatever adjustments that you need to make, those things happen throughout the series. And in particular, when, the Clippers lose a player like Kawhi, it changes what you do from a game plan standpoint. So the main thing is just, I think I'm confident in our group. We've been through a lot for a while. And I can't remember a team that I've been associated with. It's had a flock of birds hit the engine on their airplane, and everything that we've been through, over the course of the year with guys being a little banged up. We've always had kind of a next man up mentality. And that's something that, that our guys really pride themselves in. So I think they're ready to go and ready to compete and obviously know what's at stake.